This Fleet Equipment Unscripted interview is presented by Hendrickson, a leading manufacturer of heavy-duty suspension systems and components to the global commercial transportation industry. Visit hendrickson-intl.com to learn more.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jason Morgan, editor of Fleet Equipment. Welcome to Fleet Equipment Unscripted. Today, we are connecting again with Thomas Healy, founder and CEO of Hyliion. Thomas, thanks again for connecting. It's always great to catch up with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Excited to share some of the recent updates and share a little more of what we've been up to.
Yeah, you never sit still for long. There's always something cool going on. Most recently, you've announced a long-range version of the Hypertruck ERX. Now, we talked about this the last time we connected, and it's an electric powertrain fueled by natural gas, right? Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. And so, the best way to think of it, fully electric drive, the power going to the wheels purely coming from an electric motor. The only difference is, as opposed to plugging into the grid to recharge the battery pack, we actually bring the generator with you on the vehicle, and we use renewable natural gas on the truck to recharge the batteries. And we can do that for cheaper and greener than you can actually source electricity from the grid. So, that's the system as a whole. But as you said, we just unveiled or announced that we're going to have a long-range variant of that vehicle. Now, that's actually the long range is actually purely referring to the battery pack. So we're going to be putting a little bit larger of a pack on the vehicle, so it'll increase your BEV or purely electric drive capable distance. And the real goal behind it was to really comply with some of the emissions standards and targets that are coming out of California. And what we found is if we have a 75-mile BEV range capable vehicle, we could qualify for ZEV credits or zero-emission vehicle credits. Same exact credits that a battery electric truck are going after. And so we'll now be able to qualify for 75% of a credit with our 75-mile range Hypertruck solution. And that's going to be a big benefit to the transition to electrification here, because now we are really complying with the shift that the government's trying to push for as well.
Right. And we all saw the IPCC report from last week, which is still terrifying me to my core every day. We're going to see more of this in regulation, I think, on a federal level going forward. Real quick, I just want to back up. So just to clarify, it's being fueled with natural gas. It runs electric using the natural gas to create the electricity and the energy needed to move the truck. And then you have this 75-mile battery electric operation mode, like you flip a switch and then it's all running on batteries. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's correct. So if you're out on kind of like the open road, it's going to have the electricity is going to be primarily being sourced from the generator under the hood, and then your batteries there kind of acting as a buffer. So if the driver goes to accelerate, it'll pull electricity from the battery pack and the generator to drive the vehicle. Or conversely, if like you're going downhill or you're slowing down, the generator will be producing electricity, and your regen braking will be producing electricity to charge the batteries. But we have a feature on it where you can turn the generator entirely off. You'll have no tailpipe emissions at all then. You'll be operating purely as an electric truck. And then when you're in city limits or at a port or in a high emission area, you can actually have a zero tailpipe emission vehicle, make your deliveries, and then get back out on the open road, and your generator will kick on. So it's like all the benefits of an electric truck, but none of the downsides of range anxiety or infrastructure issues.
Right. Because we've even seen an uptick in natural gas truck sales, just standard natural gas truck sales here in the past month or two. So is this Hypertruck, is this a retrofit solution like some of your other hybrid products, or is this a truck built from the ground up?
Yeah, so this is a new vehicle install. And so, very similar to when you're specing out a truck today or buying one and you're selecting, do you want the Cummins engine or do you want the OEM engine? You very similarly, we're a powertrain provider. And so we are offering the Hypertruck just on new vehicle installs. For launch here, we're going to be utilizing Peterbilt trucks, and then it'll have our powertrain in them. And so those will be the initial versions that we're going to start showcasing with fleets later this year, and then getting them into fleet operations in 2022.
Oh, wow. Okay, very cool. So you can get it straight from the factory and working with Peterbilt. That's a cool partnership. One of the other
And just
partners.
to,
Oh, go ahead.
to clarify there, so, one of the things that we're working on is ultimately, we want this to be something that when you're just specing and buying a brand new truck, it's kind of like checking the box of a powertrain. Now, we're not there today, right? Today, we're utilizing mod centers just next to the factory line to do the powertrain outfit, and then eventually we want to get this pulled in right from the factory.
Right. But it's still, this process is still taking place on the new truck acquisition order. Because I know we've talked before about some of the other hybrid offerings and switching out the electric axle on your other hybrid product and bringing it to a diesel platform takes an extra step. This one seems a little more streamlined, at least at first glance here.
That's correct. Yeah. And you hit the nail on the head. Our hybrid product that we have that we're shipping out to fleets in low volumes today, that's something that we can either do it on a new vehicle install, or we're actually retrofitting existing trucks that fleets have in their operations and converting them into being hybrid.
Right. I wanted to ask, because you mentioned partnerships here. You also announced a partnership with FEV, a vehicle and powertrain development company. What role have they played in developing maybe the Hypertruck or any other technologies? What do you see with that partnership going forward?
So they're a class-leading outsourced engineering firm. They've worked with many of the conventional OEMs out there both in the passenger car space and in the trucking space in the past. And so, they've been kind of a tried and proven, outsourced engineering firm that can really deliver excellent solutions to the market. And so we obviously have our own engineering team here that is, involved in, making these powertrains, bringing them to fruition. But we're also outsourcing some of the development to FEV to really assist us. And, they can take all the industry best known practices, pull that into the development of what we're doing, take past experiences of developing powertrains from others, make sure maybe we don't take some of those same missteps that others have maybe taken, or we pull forward some of the learnings there. And they're really assisting us with getting this product to market quicker, but also making sure it's reliable and it meets the objectives of what we set out to do, right? We want to make sure that we're offering fleets a reliable solution that can ultimately reduce operating costs and improve the emission profile of the truck.
Right. Zooming out a little bit, because you have been a leader in hybrid technology for the trucking industry here now for a while. And I know hybrid in general has kind of been slow to start. There was a lot of buzz about battery electric vehicles that are all coming into the market now. But what do you see going forward with all the environmental changes and requirements coming down the line? Is there a sea change coming with hybrid technology being more integrated to diesel or natural gas or any other power plant type of operations? Like, what's your crystal ball see here in the next 5 to 10 years for hybrids?
So I guess the crystal ball my landscape of it would be, we are absolutely moving to electrification, right? There's no question about that. I don't think fleets are questioning that. If anything, they're actually looking to do it faster and get electrification into their operations. The thing that I think we need to be very mindful of, though, is there's not a one size fits all solution, right? It's the market, trucking as a whole. There's a lot of nuances or differences to it across different industries. You've got some applications that are short haul, very few miles a day type deliveries. Then you have the long haul. You're traveling 300, 500 miles a day. It's like, just get out on the open road and go. And those require very different solutions. So what we're seeing is that local delivery short haul, go BEV, right? It makes sense. It's not a huge load on the grid. You don't need a massive battery pack. That makes sense to be plugged into the grid BEV. But once you start getting into longer ranges, that's when you start hitting some of these big hurdles of, like, if you want to do a fast recharge of that battery pack, there's a study done that, a 500-mile range BEV semi, plugging 2 of those into the grid would consume more electricity in a fast recharge situation than all the electricity consumed at an entire truck manufacturing plant, right? So it's like, when you start looking at some of these numbers, it's like, well, how many of those trucks could you possibly put on the grid until you just overtax it or there's not electricity available? And so from that standpoint, that's where, we've flipped the model on its head. We said, well, let's just produce the electricity as you go down the road. And that's what we're doing with the natural gas generator. And so that's where we see, we can start with natural gas. And then I think there's a ton of excitement and a ton of possibility with hydrogen. The biggest question there is just when, right? Today, natural gas is ready. Stations are there, costs are low, emissions profiles are great, especially when using RNG. Hydrogen, we haven't quite gotten there yet. Infrastructure is not available. Costs are still probably 3 or 4x the cost of diesel today. So it's just there's a lot of hurdles that have to that have to be broken down in order for that to become realistic for fleets.
Right now, and I know we've talked about California and the regulations there, but I think if any of the recent reports have showed us is that climate change is really everyone's responsibility, right? Like we've known that for a while, but it put it in pretty stark black and white here in the past week or two. And to your point, being able to enact something now, right? This isn't something you have to wait on. This isn't something that you have to see which technology kind of wins out. There are solutions in the marketplace right now. I know we talked a little bit even before we started recording on renewable natural gas, because as your point, you plug in the trucks to the grid. That's wonderful. You're not getting any emissions at the tailpipe, but where is that electricity coming from, right? Where is that energy coming from? It's a question that we have to deal with. I think that's probably a larger societal question, but something fleets need to be aware of for sure,
I think that's actually the secret sauce to this whole equation, though, is how do you produce electricity, right? Because at the end of the day, the vehicle architecture between a fuel cell truck, our Hypertruck, a BEV truck, it's not all that different. It's an electric truck at the end of the day. But the biggest difference is how do you charge the batteries? And when you start diving into that equation, there's some big nuances there. Like, we talked about just how much draw from the grid a BEV truck can have, and then our fleet's going to pay the infrastructure costs in order to upgrade the transformers that are going to be needed to be put in place. And we had one fleet tell us they wanted to convert 150 trucks over to BEV, and they went to their utility provider and got a quote, and it came back at, I think it was like $30 million. And then at that point, they're just like, timeout, like this doesn't work for our payback numbers. We can't do this.
Right, for sure. And if you're a larger corporation and you do want some, even internal sustainability credits or tracking your decarbonization efforts, which are starting to come into play now, I mean, yeah, it doesn't help if your grid is still just using fossil fuels to make that energy. You're not really achieving your kind of sustainability goals there. So still lots to talk about. I'm sure you will have a ton to talk about here going forward as we introduce all these new technologies. I appreciate you taking the time to connect. Always great catching up.
Absolutely. And for any of your viewers, lots of trade shows coming up here in the near future. We're going to have a booth on display. We're going to have the Hypertruck, hybrid trucks there. So please come see us, and we'd love to share more of what we're up to.
Yeah, for sure. I will be at ACT Expo, so I will see you there. I'll be at TMC. So yeah, come out, see us, check out Hyliion, see what else is going on in the market. For sure, come out to the events.
Thanks. Great chatting with you.
Take care.